Hello, you're watching Monday edition of News Mongolia. Today is April 25th. For our top stories, the President of Mongolia attended the BOAO Forum for Asia online. Mongolia's economic growth for 2022 is expected to remain modest. Up to 1,000 couples a year get married at Ulaanbaatar's wedding palace. For other news, stay tuned. The World Bank in Mongolia introduced its 2022 Mongolian economic updates. According to the report, after a strong initial rebound, Mongolia's economic recovery stalled in the last 3 quarters of 2021, and the growth outlook for 2022 is expected to remain modest.
Following a contraction of 4.4% in 2020 and 1.4% growth in 2021, the World Bank's latest Mongolian economic updates projects that the economy will grow by 2.5% in 2022, reflecting lingering border lockdown issues and the impact of the war in Ukraine. Despite continued policy support and higher commodity prices, economic growth is dragged down by protracted trade disruptions and logistical bottlenecks amid border closures. Headline inflation rose sharply to 14.4% year-on-year by March 2022, weighing down real incomes and household consumptions. The war in Ukraine amplified external risks, resulting in increased demand for foreign exchange and further erosion of international reserves, according to the report. The report notes that the main drivers of growth included recovery in the service sector and a short-lived rebound of the mining sector in Q1 of 2021. On the demand side, domestic investments were the key driver of the growth, underpinned by substantial buildup of mineral inventories. However, private consumption contracted by 4% in 2021, despite the government's stimulus program. The report also notes that disruptions in bilateral trade with China in 2021 hampered mining exports and the import of vital inputs for domestic production. Over the medium term, the report projects economic growth to accelerate to above 6% in 2023-2024, as the underground mining phase of Mongolia's largest copper mine, Ulaanbaatar, is expected to become operational during the second half of 2023. The headline budget deficit nonetheless narrowed to 3.1% of GDP, with one-off tax arrears collection and the financing of the Child Money Program through the Future Heritage Fund, which weakened the fiscal framework and long-term sustainability. The report highlights that monetary policy needs to return to a credible inflation anchor, raise interest rates further, curtail quasi-fiscal activity, and allow the exchange rate to absorb adverse external shocks. Fiscal consolidation is necessary to stabilize debt and ensure external and public debt sustainability. Importantly, fiscal measures that better target the poor can help contain fiscal imbalances and sustain support for the most vulnerable households. The report also notes the need for structural reforms, including measures to reduce trade and transport costs, facilitating foreign investments, and promoting domestic entrepreneurship that would help strengthen growth in the medium term.
Annually, 500 to 1,000 couples hold their wedding ceremonies at Ulaanbaatar's wedding palace. For the last 2 years, due to COVID-19 restrictions and lockdowns, couples were not able to hold large wedding ceremonies. With Mongolia entering a yellow level of heightened state of readiness, major events and ceremonies with large numbers of people can be organized. This year, we have a lot of ceremony reservations for younger couples. This year is the year of the tiger, and astrologists say it's a very good year for young couples to hold wedding ceremonies and get married. Every couple wants to have an unforgettable wedding. This year, 30 companies that organize wedding ceremonies and large events gathered for a wedding expo. The expo featured all wedding services, including cakes, flowers, bridal gowns, photography, and catering services.
This year we have a lot of orders from foreign countries from interracial couples. Maybe it's related to the last 2 years of COVID lockdowns, but the number of couples ordering our services has noticeably increased. This year's expo was attended by many visitors, and a lot of companies promoted their services at the expo.
The wedding expo was organized last weekend at the Zassenhill complex. Visitors were introduced to companies that provide different wedding services and learned about their packages and products. On Monday, the Ministry of Health and the National Center for Communicable Diseases reported that 15 new cases of COVID-19 recorded in Mongolia. Since the 10th of March, no deaths caused by COVID-19 complications were recorded in Mongolia. Now let's take a look at other current affairs.
The theme of this year's forum was the world in COVID-19 and beyond, working together for global development and a shared future. In a speech presented by President Hursukhna, he noted that BOAO Forum for Asia is an important podium for discussing cooperation and unification to ensure the stability of regional economic development. The president spoke of the need to implement economic revival projects and improve relations and cooperation, calculating the difficult circumstances of the post-pandemic era and the current international situation without wasting time. He expressed Mongolia's support for the Global Development Initiative and the Belt and Road Initiative, emphasizing that this will be relevant to the assurance of the equal, stable and sustainable development of all nations and the implementation of the UN 2030 Sustainable Development Goals. He also noted that the forum was a vivid example of how Asian countries can maintain high-level relations, show mutual support and surpass difficulties together. President Hursukh mentioned that Mongolia's long-term development policy Vision 2050 refers to mining production, agriculture, energy, information technology, tourism, transportation and logistics as leading fields. He expressed Mongolia's willingness to cooperate of infrastructure, green development, environmental recovery and combating ecological degradation. He also spoke of utilizing Mongolia's geographical advantage of bridging Asia and Europe to implement the goal of transformation to transit Mongolia. Mongolia aspires to be a transport, trade and service connector, contributing to the infrastructure connection in the region, the improvement of economic integration and the development of economic corridors connecting Asia to Europe and the rest of the world, working in cooperation with allied countries and international organizations. Government officials and leaders of international organizations taking part in the conference discussed strengthening regional integration, global economic prospects and green development. President of Mongolia Hursukhna has presented a letter of credence to Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary to Switzerland, Ulaanbaatar, and wished her success. The president instructed her to always prioritize national interests, develop and future foreign relations, protect the interests of Mongolian citizens, and promote Mongolia in the Mongolian language, culture, and history during her term.
Now let's take a look at the currency exchange rates provided by Mongol Bank. Here comes the weather forecast for the world's major cities. This is it for today. Thank you for staying with us. We'll see you tomorrow with more news updates. Have a nice evening. Goodbye.